A good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the RadioWis podcast. Thank you for joining me today. A little bit of a surprise, isn't it? It's only been a couple of weeks, but already we are getting the next episode. Ooh, some might say that the world might be ending. Ooh, hopefully not. But yeah, I did mention in the previous episode that I would like these RadioWis podcast episodes to be more frequent. In fact, I was actually planning on making an episode last week, but unfortunately, the flu that I had from the previous episode was still lingered around last week. In fact, it's still lingering now. It's just mostly gone, just maybe a couple of coughs here and there. Also, because of the GamerSupps Black Friday animation that I did on the main channel, that took a lot of time, and I was trying to get that out on Friday too, so I couldn't make another episode out, or rather, I stopped myself from making another episode last week. But here we are this week in order to continue the topics that I wanted to talk about in the previous episode. Now, thinking about it now, I'm going to make a guess here. I'm not sure, but I'm going to make a guess that this episode might be a little bit shorter than usual because, well, it's only been a couple of weeks since the previous episode, but we'll see what happens, you know. One thing I mentioned in the previous episode that that I noticed I never brought up again was I said that I got back from a trip to Japan recently. Now, I never got to I never got to explore that point 2 weeks ago, although I mentioned it. I almost forgot why I wanted to talk about that trip in the first place. It's nothing too exciting, but it had something to do with the point of pursuing something meaningful rather than something expedient. I believe that's the word for it, and that's the lesson in Jordan Peterson's book. But during my time in Japan, well, first of all, I decided to go back to Japan this year because it's been a couple of years since the first trip, and I just wanted some time away from work and, you know, to properly distance myself from the computer and distractions in order to properly think about what I want for the future. And it was a fruitful trip, mostly spent on a farm, volunteering again. And while I was on the farm thinking about, you know, just the general future for RadioWis and myself and my family, what I want for them, what I want for myself in the next 5 to 10 years. During my stay on the farm, I met this volunteer turned employee of the farm. And, you know, he was, although my Japanese was not too fluent, we were able to communicate for the most part. And, you know, he was sharing with me his story, which I thought was so coincidental to why I went to Japan in the first place. And basically, this guy, we'll call him. What do I call him? I don't want to dox him. He's probably not going to listen to the podcast anyway. We'll just call him. We'll call him Ronnie. Let's call him Ronnie. Okay. So basically, Ronnie-san was a salary man from Tokyo. And he was basically just going through what I believe was the life cycle of a Japanese man in Tokyo. You finish college or university, you get attached to a job and you stay at that job till you're 50, get a midlife crisis, probably go to a brothel, and then probably jump onto the tracks in front of an oncoming train or something. You know, and that was... I remember he said, "This sucks." And so it was during that time when he first started working out, whenever he got like time off, he would volunteer at the farm that we were at. And I think he volunteered a total of, how many times? Like 10 times, like once a year for like the past, well, no, maybe not 10 times, it's too many, maybe like seven or 8 times. But he basically fell in love with farming. And so whenever he volunteered on the farm, he realized how fulfilling it was as compared to his day job at the bank. And he started seriously considering just stopping everything and working on the farm full time. And eventually he did, which was really, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I felt like it was really coincidental that he was sharing with me this story as I was there thinking about what I wanted to do for my future. Except in my case, I already have RadioWis, and I more or less have a... I'm already on a boat, so I just don't know where to row. Whereas for him, he felt like the boat was sinking, so he wanted to jump ship. And yeah, he basically just said, "Fuck it, I don't like this salaryman nonsense. I want to work on a farm because it's more fulfilling. You know, the hours are longer, but he felt more purpose, or at least that's what I understood in the conversations that we were having about, you know, how he ended up on the farm. And he basically just, he was willing to commit. He gave up everything from Tokyo. He quit his job. He sold his apartment, I guess. He sold his apartment and he bought another apartment in Hokkaido, which is where the farm was, you know, in the little town that we were in. And he he brought his wife over as well, which is really, what do I say? How do I say this? I guess it's, I'm not one for, I don't have the vocabulary for it, so the only word that comes to my mind is, that's really romantic, and like, I really respect his wife for trusting in his decision and giving up everything in Tokyo to follow him to Hokkaido and work on the farm. And, you know, just listening to their story, funnily enough, they got married on the farm. So, that's how you know they're committed, son. Like they were showing me like the wedding photos that they took, and you know, it's like they got some really nice shots of them walking around in the wheat fields and the crops, and you know, it's just really nice shots of the mountains and the valleys in the back. And then there was one with them riding a tractor, which is so strange to me. It's coming from a city state like Singapore, You know, you hardly see tractors around, let alone a married couple on it in their wedding dresses and wedding suits. It's really interesting. And yeah, just the commitment that they both possessed, the drive that they had when they knew this was what they wanted to do. And like I said earlier, they worked longer hours. Their working days are all over the place because they work on the weekends. The days that they get off is quite inconsistent from the schedules that we were working on. You know, like I noticed that, you know, sometimes they get like a Monday off or maybe like a Thursday off, you know. Occasionally they get like a weekend off, but when you work on a farm, every day counts. You know, every day you're not working is every day you're not earning money from your crops or something. Something like that. There's probably some really profound proverb about it, but I just don't have it in my head right now. But the point I'm trying to make is how old was he? 25? 26? I believe 25. I do believe in Japan it's not mandatory for you to serve the country. So I do believe he went to college when he was 18. And that was when, based on the story he told me, that he went to college when he was 18. And it was then that he met his wife when he worked part-time. And then he started volunteering at the farm because he just wanted something different. And then just last year, he got married on a tractor. Took some photos next to some potatoes and corn. it's just so interesting to me. And now they're happy. They're not rich. They're not. What's the word for it? They don't live in luxury, but they're happy. And I thought that was beautiful. That they both were the trust that they both had in each other to be willing to sacrifice everything and move together to a completely different locale to start a new life together instead of sticking around what's familiar back in Tokyo. You know, I thought that was amazing to see. It's not every day you find. It's not every day you find a wife that's willing to not abandon, but sacrifice everything to pursue your dreams so that you both can succeed together. I think that was great. He's got a keeper, that's for sure. I made sure to let him know too. I was telling him that, you know, his wife sacrificed so much to accompany you with your dream. You better take her on a fucking holiday, son. You know, take like another wedding photo on a cruise or something. Not just the tractor. Like, come on, come on, dude. What are you doing? Yeah, but it's all fun and good. And so, witnessing his story, watching him and his wife, you know, just have a great time together, working on the farm together. It kind of felt like, I'm just assuming, but, you know, watching them work, smile and laugh, I'm confident that they are content. They have their goals and they have their wants, but as ironic as that sounds, but they're content. And I think that's something that maybe we all can strive for. You know? Not luxury, not riches, but like a purpose. Someone that you can pursue a purpose with. And that makes the journey that much more fun to have. Yeah, it's beautiful. And so I started thinking about what I wanted for my, well, not started, but I was already thinking about what I wanted for RadioWis, for myself. But watching those two helped to put things in perspective, you know. I believe one of the goals 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, was like, I want RadioWis to have like 1 million subs, and you know, so that I can bargain for more money whenever companies or clients want to collaborate, so that I can make a lot of money and then save up that money. But for what? You know, it's good to earn money, but is that it? You know, is that it? You know, just be monetarily comfortable. Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, that's nice to have. It's good to aim for. You know, nobody likes to be in poverty financially. It sucks. And trust me, I know. But there's more. But what else? You know, there's more to it than that. There's definitely more to life than just numbers. You know, which is why in the previous episode but in the previous episode I mentioned that I'd like to have kids someday with a wife that would help me be the best version of myself as much as I want her to be the best version of herself. That we push each other forward together. Our goals align. That sounds fun. That sounds meaningful to me. You know, having provided for my brothers as though they were my own children for the past 12 years. Nothing has provided more meaning to me than that. Personally, I can't speak for everybody else, but for me personally, that's it was my biggest motivator to do better when I had to provide for them. And my mother, of course. You know, we worked together, but my mother was part of that equation. Is that the right way to say it? It's like, it's not just for my brothers, but it's for my mother as well, because, you know, she's earned a better life, and I hope I can give it to her while she's around. Give that life to her while she's around. And you know, initially the thought was, I want to make as much money as possible so that, you know, we're all financially stable. But if that's the end goal, it kind of feels incomplete. And so, you know, what is it that would give that would actually give us meaning in life? You know, what is an actual purpose worth pursuing? If that's the right way to say it. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. Maybe I'm fumbling my words here. But, you know, it's just something to think about. You know, I am in my 30s after all. I'm pretty sure the people who watch this podcast, you guys are not, you're not that young. And so it's a question that I would like to, it's a question that's, I feel is healthy to pose to ourselves. You know, what do we want in 5 to 10 years? You know, as difficult as the world may be, as shit as the economy might be, you know, as how much, like, at what point do we stop blaming the world and start trying to find ways to work around it, you know? To pursue that which is meaningful to us. You know, the obstacles are there, but we can't let them stop us. Otherwise, we just remain in the same spot, and that kind of sucks. And so how do we push forward? That's the question, you know? And even if we do push forward, what are we pushing forward for? What's worth pushing forward through those obstacles? You know, what's worth fighting around those challenges that life provides? Because everyone's life sucks. It's just the human condition. What is worth, as cliche as it sounds, what is worth fighting for? But it goes beyond that. I don't have the words in my head right now, but that's what I'm thinking about recently, in the past like couple of years. More intensely in the past year or so, like past maybe 9 months to a year. Yeah. We can do better. We always can. And so we should. That's what I feel. You guys know, well, you don't know because I never told anybody, but 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago? In January this year? Nah, yeah, it was about 2 years ago. So in 2 years ago, I was actually trying to explore the different ways in which I thought RadioWis would be able to expand into. One of which was trying to attempt these the story time style videos, like similar to the one where I talked about joining the YouTube creator program. The reason being because it was relatively easier to produce, you know, it's like those really low fidelity drawings, sketches almost, and it's mostly driven by the narration, so there's not really a need to be too creative. You're just basically illustrating a story, you know, hence story time illustrations. And I actually tried recording a couple of, not vlogs, but recording a couple of stories that I thought might make good story time videos. I still have the files, but ultimately I decided not to explore that avenue when it comes to content creation, because it kind of felt a little bit too alien to what RadioWis is. You know, it didn't feel like an evolution of RadioWis. It kind of felt like a pivot, which was too far from what I wanted for RadioWis. In fact, I think it's more accurate to say that I did not know what I wanted for RadioWis in the long run, but I knew that that's what I did not want for RadioWis. Turning into narrated story time, illustrated videos. I mean, there's plenty of other content creators doing it, and so I thought I'm just replicating what's already out there, and you know, it's well, I guess I could do it, but the two varying degrees of success or failures. But I feel like I'd be walking in someone else's footsteps rather than creating my own, and that didn't feel like that's what I wanted for RadioWis. So the point in this is that it's just from a saying that I heard some time ago. It's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in. I think that's the saying. Hopefully I didn't butcher it, but basically, you know, is whatever it is that we're doing, are we just working hard without knowing what the goal is, without knowing what the destination is, or even having an inkling of what it might be? You know, is the boat we're in going nowhere, or, you know, even worse, is it heading towards somewhere that we don't want to go? And if it is, you know, you might want to stop rowing so hard and start reconsidering where it is you'll end up. Which ties into a point that I wrote on this little post-it note, which is, if we were to continue doing what we're currently doing for the next 10 years is too far, but you know, for the next 5 years, what would our lives look like? What would our environment look like? You know? Is that what we want? Is that what we don't want? Would the accomplishments that we could have be the accomplishments that we want? Or are we able to accomplish more? And so those are the questions that I find myself asking this past few months, which is why I mentioned in the previous episode that, you know, not just the previous episode, but in the episode where, you know, after the 2 episodes ago, you know, where I said, I can do more. I feel like I can do more. I believe I can do more. You just feel it. Sometimes you just feel it in your soul, you know, when you realize you've been blessed with something something good and you know you're not utilizing the blessing to its fullest potential. I can't really find the words to describe it any beyond that, but it's that feeling. And so it's a question that I pose upon you, the audience, as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm based on the demographics that YouTube shows me. A lot of you are not that young, but neither are you all too old. And so basically, you're not too young or too old to be asked the question of, what would your life look like in 5 years were you to continue doing what you're doing right now? And is that the life that you want to have? Could you be more? And I believe we can. In fact, it kind of sounds, I don't know, arrogant, cliche, but we have to be more. We owe it to our future selves to be better. That is also something I learned from reading Jordan Peterson's book. I highly recommend it, by the way, 12 Rules for Life. I haven't read the second book yet, the 12 More Rules for Life, and We Who Wrestle with God. But if you're looking for like some self-help book or maybe some guidance in how you can steer in which direction to steer your life, and I highly recommend 12 Rules for Life. Beyond other books. Amongst other books. That's the right word for it. So yeah, what's the point of this episode? I'm just trying to summarize everything, trying to make sure that I don't end up speaking on a tangent again without making a point. The previous episode was a little too disorganized for my personal taste, kind of, when I listened to it again. I mean, granted, I was not feeling too well, and so my thoughts were all over the place. But I guess that's something I still have to work on in this podcast. In fact, one of the things that I've been intending to do, should I say it? There's that fallacy, right? The more you lay out your plans, the more you preach your plans, the more you don't achieve them. It's better to just have them and then work towards them. But I guess this is relevant to the audience here, I guess. One of the things that I intend to do is have guests on this show. This is not an original idea, of course. In fact, somebody in the comments in one of the earlier episodes, I can't remember which one, mentioned, or rather asked if I would have guests on this podcast. And I've been thinking about it, actually. I've been brainstorming, like, what would the purpose of having guests be if I were to have them? And would it be genuine? Would it be, what's the word for it, detrimental to the guests? Because this channel is so small, I can't give anything in return other than a space to have a conversation. But I am interested in in having guests, because I don't know, maybe ping-ponging ideas might lead to more interesting conversations. Who knows who I might invite? But but it is an idea I'd like to try for the podcast. You know, the purpose of the podcast. I've been thinking about it actually. Why am I doing this podcast? Why am I recording these episodes which are basically just rambles and rants and, you know, just incoherent. What was the word for it? Incoherent whining, I guess. But hold on, I wrote it down somewhere. It's on my computer here somewhere. All right, here we go. The purpose of my podcast, or what I'd like it to be, is a contributor to bringing back normalcy and common sense into daily life. And to encourage myself and my audience to think, in the hopes that we can be better as people. Yeah. I typed this on a little digital post-it note. Just something to, just brainstorming ideas. And I feel like this is what I'd like the podcast to be. And so I feel like this purpose would be meaningful. And so the only thing that's left to do is to find ways to reach this goal. If not, pursue it to the end. Who knows? Who knows what's in store? Who knows? But I got a good feeling about this. I really do. What was the point of this episode again? Oh no. Oh no. I'm thinking about it. What was the point of this episode? Oh man, what was it I wanted to discuss? Was it just the trip to Japan, the farm, pursuing something meaningful, finding a partner that you can that you can trust in, that trusts in you, that sacrifices with you to achieve something greater together? Well, was that the episode? Was that the point? Was that the only point? Trying out something new for RadioWis, realizing that that's not the path I wanted to take, making sure that the effort put in is to reach a goal that you want to reach. The dangers of being aimless. What else? Were those the points? Well, I guess those were the points. I'm just summarizing the video at this point, stretching for time. But maybe we'll end the episode here. Yeah. Because on the little post-it note that I have with me, it just says Japan trip, farm boy. Tractor wife. And then it's not the quote that I mentioned earlier is not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in. I guess that's it. I guess that maybe I should write more. more bullet points. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as natural as I can. I'd rather not have a script, you know, and I don't want it to be too manufactured when it comes to the points that I want to make. But maybe this is too little. Maybe too little and too vague. Yeah. All right, that's something to improve on. Everything else is just ad-libbed. But let's call it an episode. I'll try to keep these episodes more frequent. Maybe bi-weekly. What's the word for it? Fortnightly? Every 2 weeks? Perhaps weekly is a little... a little too much right now. But who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I want to be more consistent with these. I feel like I have a good feeling about the podcast. I really do. And with the plans that I have for RadioWis, I feel like they might lead to something, because it's not just circling around the same spot over and over again. You know, what's the next step? How can we improve? Not necessarily change or pivot or completely do a 180. But how can we do better in the things that we pursue? Which is, once again, a question that I pose upon you, the listener. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.